Well, hello and welcome to Old People This Week. My name is Jeff, and that rascal, that man of means by no means, that's Mike. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Jeff. Good morning, everyone.
We are your hosts. Old People This Week is a podcast for people who are 60 and over. So if you haven't reached that age of reason, then vaya con Dios, my friend. We bring you stories every week to challenge you. We bring you stories that will help you navigate being of age. And we bring you stories that will, at best, make you sound smart this weekend when you're hanging out at the golf course playing parcheesi, at the quilting bee, or, of course, as Mike and I often do, hang out at happy hour.
Shaken, not stirred.
Yes, Mr. Bond. We have a lot to get to today, but first, of course, we want to mention that we'd like you to subscribe, please, or send us an email at oldpeoplethisweek@gmail.com, or, of course, check us out on our 52 tasks, which are very, very popular at 52tasks.substack.com. Before we begin, too, I want to make mention we have a new subscriber. His name is Chris Evanson. Thank you, Chris, for subscribing. We appreciate it. And we got a comment this week that I thought was just great from a person who calls themselves, their handle is Billy Hilly Hillbilly.
They loved your reference to the Ashtabula reception for anyone moving up from Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky and West Virginia. We used to call them Bill Hillies. But this person, Billy Hilly Hillbilly, said about our podcast, awesome, I love old people stuff. I'm a baby senior, meaning I get the Denny's discount, but I'm not old enough for Social Security, which means he or she is probably in their 60s. So thank you, Billy Hilly Hillbilly. So anyway, let's jump into it. We have a lot of little short things I wanted to talk about at the beginning. The first thing is I see all these advertisements on TV this week for the new Aquaman movie, and I don't get the whole Aquaman thing. So I started doing some research. It turns out that Aquaman is an Atlantean, which is an underwater species of amphibious humanoids that inhabit Earth's oceans and are native to the kingdom of Atlantis. They are also a sister species of the human race. He is not a sea creature. He breathes air just like any other man and water just like any other Atlanteans. What he can do is breathe in both environments indefinitely or forever if he needs to.
I'm on the edge of my chair.
So I had to dig into this further, and I asked the question, does Aquaman swim or is he flying underwater? And the answer is Aquaman doesn't fly through water. His strength is so great that when he swims, he moves at tremendous speeds that makes it seem like he's flying.
Aha. But doesn't he have in all the images I see, doesn't he have a tail and carries a giant trident spear?
Yeah. He carries a giant trident spear, and I saw him riding a seahorse. Not like in your day riding a bull that you used to ride. This is a man riding a seahorse. Oh, so the next thing is I wanted to say that months ago, literally, we did a story about the worst tasting Campbell's soup, worst tasting chunky Campbell's soup. It was called a Campbell's split pea and ham soup. We took the taste test, or actually I did. I went out and I bought a can of the chunky soup. You can see it's empty because I ate it, and I'll actually have some video of me eating it.
Did you eat the whole thing? Did you eat the whole thing?
So here's my review of it. Huh?
Did you eat the whole thing or just taste it?
I ate the whole thing. Yeah, It was the saltiest thing I have ever eaten. As a matter of fact, I was so salty that I was like I couldn't. My lips were stuck together, and I had to crawl to the kitchen and put my head under the sink and drink water. Um, Kim Kardashian, you had a brief story about Kim. What's she up to now?
Well, she's being sued by a famous furniture designer because she's claiming that the furniture in her home was made by him, and he is vehemently denying that he had anything to do with her furniture. And it just amuses me that
Yeah.
that she's worth, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars, and she has to lie about the furniture in her home when she could just go out and buy it. Ridiculous.
Yeah. And this leads to their odd. It's almost like they were boxcar children who made money and they don't quite know how to. They like Beverly Hillbillies because they like this. They make up stories about their decor and they sell things from their closet that we reported on before, bags that are soiled and who wants her used thong bathing suit, but and the question is why when they're so wealthy. It's just odd.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Just odd. I haven't bought anything from the Kardashian closet. Have you?
No, but neither one of us has a big enough butt to wear any of those thong bikinis or whatever else that stuff is.
We shouldn't be making fun of anyone else's butt, though, Mike. Honestly. And happy birthday to Apple. If you invested $1,000 in Apple stock on December 12th, 1980, today you would have $1,336,000. So if I was not that old, but I also didn't have $1,000 on December 12th, 1980. But if I had, I would be sitting pretty somewhere, sipping a drink and not worrying about anything other than sipping another drink.
Another drink.
Yeah. But I did not have that kind of foresight. Did you know on December 12th, 1980, were you smart enough to invest in Apple?
No, absolutely not. Or I wouldn't be doing this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I thought that Apple meant Apple Records with the Beatles. I didn't know there was a second Apple company. I didn't know. Nobody was telling me, and where was I then in 1980? 1980, I had moved out west to California, so I was of age. I certainly should have known something about it, but I didn't, and I didn't invest, and now there's other people sitting around with that money in their pocket, not me. The story of this week that I wanted to get into first was about Beyonce's country album called Cowboy Carter. And the reason I wanted to bring this up to you, and I bring it up to the people who watch the podcast, is because I think it's just interesting. There's so many facets to this story. The first one is that Beyonce is a great artist, and she decides to record in the country genre, and she puts out this album, and there is a lot of pushback about it, whether or not it's a country album at all, whether or not who should be a country artist, and then ultimately is it any good or not? I listened to the single that came from the album, and I watched the video, very well put together, exciting video, but there's resistance. Now, Mike, and you're a country western guy. You grew up with Hank Snow and Hank Williams and all the other ancient country artists,
Thank
turn
you.
of the last century. But I wondered, but modern artists too. The who's playing at Stagecoach out in Coachella this year. So I'm curious as to your feelings about Beyonce's country album.
Well, she summed it up pretty well in her reaction to some of the skepticism. And she said it's not really a country album, it's a Beyonce album, which is probably the best statement of how the album will be received eventually. Beyonce fans will love it and buy it. country fans will have a tepid response at best. And I just don't think it'll have much impact, and not because she's not welcome in the country genre, but I think she's through her own comments kind of positioned it as a revenge album against what she felt was a slight or a snub when she performed at a recent country music award show. I think it was a couple of 3 years ago with the then Dixie Chicks. She wore a see-through dress with a thong bikini, and I'm not sure that was entirely appropriate for the audience. So she misread the room really badly. The customer's going to ultimately vote with their pocketbook, and that'll determine whether it was a good venture for her or not.
You meant bringing up the Dixie Chicks that are now the Chicks, but they had their own issues, and they came out and said something about George W. Bush, and next thing you know, they're banished basically, and she did perform with them. Beyonce did, and she did dress scantily, which but that's her, and it's just tough, I think, in the country for women and certainly women of color, for any artists of color in country music. And you're right, they're not. It's being embraced by the general audience, her fans and people who listen to country occasionally. It's number one on the Billboard Hot Country Song Chart, which accounts for genre agnostic streaming activity, meaning on all platforms they gather all the information. She's number one there, but it's only number 50 on the country airplay chart, which tracks radio play on country stations, which means that the hardcore country people haven't accepted it. But what the hell? She took a risk, in which is what you want your artist to do. Anyway, so we'll see.
They're playing a bit on the highway, which is the kind of the new music venue for on Sirius for new country music.
In the next week, we'll see how it sells or continues to sell. But again, I encourage people to go on YouTube, watch the music video, and you'll see her. You'll see a lot of her because she's dressed scantily. But it is a good. It's a good line dance song. I got up and danced around the room when I heard it. So
please no, say it isn't true.
I damaged myself when I fell, slipped. I did have cowboy boots when I was younger. I thought I was riding a trend, and I bought myself some cowboy boots and wore them around for a while, but I found them to be too tight and too silly looking, so I got rid of them. I just didn't. I couldn't carry them well. Not like you. Not like you with those. You used to walk around with boots and spurs.
Authenticity.
The next story is falls under the heading "the most despicable couple in America," and that dubious title belongs to Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. And I don't know if you followed this story, but I'm going to go through it now, Mike, and then we'll talk about it after I go through this timeline, because it's just incredible, and these people are so sad and savagely evil that I think they have to be brought up. In 2006, there's this woman, Lori Vallow, and she's happily married to businessman Charles Vallow, and they're living in Arizona, and they're raising a daughter, Ty Lee Ryan, who's Lori's daughter from a previous marriage. They'll cut all the way to 2014. So 8 years later, Lori and Charles adopt J.J. Vallow. He was the grandson of Charles, Lori's husband Charles' sister. J.J. had autism, and a woman who was Lori's friend said Lori was patient and an ideal mother for him. So in 2014, Lori and Charles are married. They are raising 2 kids, happy family. Then in 2017, things start to change. Lori becomes obsessed with the writings of Chad Daybell, who wrote fiction books about preparing for the end of the world. Now, he lives in Rexburg, Idaho. So Chad Daybell. So I went on to Amazon and typed his name in, and the books come up, and they're named like things like Martial Law, Days of Fury, Reclaiming Liberty, which in parentheses, the title is Reclaiming Liberty, and then in parentheses, Times of Turmoil, Part 4. Not Part 1. There's 3 other parts to Reclaiming Liberty. And evidently it's pretty radical stuff in which he believes that the end of the world's coming and you better be ready for it. And if you're not, you're going to be, you're not going to be saved, you're going to be destroyed. Well, at any rate, so Lori gets way into this Chad Daybell writing, and in 2018, she meets Chad at some religious gathering, and Chad at the time, he's also married. Chad's married to Tammy, and they have 5 children. So Chad Daybell, the writer of these apocalyptic novels, is married with 5 kids. But Lori and Chad are kindred spirits. They bond over Daybell's apocalyptic. I cannot say that word. Forget it. Or doomsday belief that the end of the world is coming. And they start to do a religious podcast together, even though he's in Idaho, she's down in Arizona. They start espousing crazy theories. The most far out one was that certain people, basically anybody who's not them or their listeners on their podcast, are zombies, people whose souls are replaced by dark spirits. Lori started referring to her husband Charles as a demon.
Really fun folks to be around. God.
Yeah. Someone you'd invite over for a drink and then talk about the coming doomsday. So Lori started acting odd at home, drew away from her husband and kids, and finally Charles was so concerned that Charles went to the police and told him that Lori believed that she was a god and threatened to murder him. You find out he found out afterwards that Lori and Chad were having an affair, meaning for all their interest in this pseudo quasi-religious beliefs, they were really just wanted to get together, which is a little more secular than spiritual.
Knocking boots.
Well,
Knocking
Charles,
boots.
Filed for like the Gold Bachelor, knocking boots. Charles files for divorce. In court documents, he says that he feared for the lives of himself and his children. In 2019, Charles Vallow went to the house where Lori Vallow was living with the children in Chandler, Arizona. Charles was supposed to drop off their son JJ at school, but when he went inside the home, Charles was shot dead by Lori's brother Alex. This is the end of Charles' part of this story. So he was married to Lori. They have the 2 kids. Lori starts getting crazy, has an affair with Chad. Then they get divorced. He goes by the house to pick up JJ, and when he walks in, he's shot dead by Lori's brother, Alex Cox. Cox tells police that Lori and Charles got into a fight. Alex claimed he was protecting his sister and shot Charles in self-defense. Lori and Tylee, who both say they heard the shooting, told similar stories of self-defense, so Lori and Alex were let off the hook. So now she's free of her husband. She moves with the kids to Idaho to be closer to Chad, and Alex moves up there with him. So in September of 2019, this is when it gets crazy serious. Lori, Tylee, JJ, and the brother Alex went to Yellowstone National Park. This is where they say the last known photo of Tylee was taken before she vanished. A friend of Lori said that Lori had referred to Tylee as a zombie. That's not good. If they think you're a zombie, you're in trouble. You better watch your back. But this poor girl, 14-year-old, now it's vanished. The next day, investigators say that Alex Cox, the brother's cell phone, GPS placed him on Chad Daybell's backyard, and he was on that property for 2 hours. 14 minutes after Cox's GPS showed him leaving the property, Chad Daybell texted his wife, Tammy, and said, "I spotted a big raccoon along the fence. I hurried and got my gun. and he was still walking along. I got close enough that one shot did the trick. He is now in our pet cemetery.
Oh man.
That is, yeah. This is done. First of all, it's the only reason he sends a stupid text like that is because he knows somebody's going to read it later and say, "Oh," and he thinks that they're going to believe. Oh, look at him. He texted him. So yeah, he must have seen a raccoon in the backyard and shot him.
Yeah.
But the investigators are not that stupid. But anyway, that's the point that is midway through this story. So Tylee has disappeared, and the next day the cops realized that Alex was in Chad Daybell's backyard, Chad being Lori's lover, and Chad Daybell, for his part, says that I shot a raccoon with my gun and buried it in the pet cemetery.
Yeah. Not likely.
We're going to continue this next week, which will include the fate of JJ, the brother, the death of Tammy, the investigation, and the finale, at least for Lori, because there's a lot more to this story. They are truly horrific people and thought that he could get away with a lot of things, including murder. And
that's horrible.
And we'll see what happens. That's horrible. Back to our topic that we were really into last week, which were how people try to scam us aging people. Matter of fact, like I've said, there's several things about this that make me crazy. One is that why are we, after meaning us who are over 60, why do we get stupid and start answering the phone and just start giving money away? I don't know why. I don't know why we get stupid. But we do. And so our advice to people was last week is simply don't pick up the phone for under any circumstances, because unless it's your spouse or kids, somebody's gonna be trying to rip you off.
Yeah, and you may not even know if it's your spouse or your kids these days because of AI. So just don't answer the phone.
Well, and also if you pick up your phone and you see a number on there, certain area codes can warn potential targets that the call isn't safe, according to Joseph Steinberg, who's the CEO of a company called Secure My Social. They scam callers once used 900 numbers. Everybody used those 900 numbers. Psychics use those 900 numbers. But now the scam phone numbers have different area codes, including 809, which originates in the Caribbean. So I'm going to list below the area codes to watch out for. One of them is area code 809. Criminals have been known to use caller IDs with the area code 473, which appears to be domestic, but it actually is an area code for the island of Grenada.
Who knew?
So you watch out for those. By the way, who knew? It's crazy. And as I'm going to tell you the story, as I was reading about this yesterday, and I'm writing this down, literally as I'm writing this down, I get a call from Anthem Blue Cross, it says on my screen, and it says possible spam. And it was an 833 area code. So I hung up. I didn't pick it up, and it went to voicemail. Yeah. And I typed the number I Googled the number. It began with an 833 area code. And it turns out it is a scam. It wasn't Anthem calling me. So literally, I almost got scammed myself, because I just joined Anthem too. So I would have, and, okay, what do you need? What do you need to know? My social security number? Bank account numbers?
The more troubling thing is they knew you recently joined Anthem, which tells you something about the leakage in Anthem's security systems.
If it's suspicious, don't answer the phone. Don't call back these numbers. There's other ways. Don't answer the phone. Now when my wife calls me, I look at it suspiciously. I make her tell me, my wife, when she calls me, I make her tell me her date of birth so I can know that it's her. Hello, Jeff. What's your social security number? And what time are you going to be home for dinner? But the last story today is, we always end with a sort of incredible tale, usually from somebody doing some misdeeds down in Florida. Today it's our Florida man story, only it took place in Ohio, where I'm from. And it took place in Columbus, where I'm not from. I'm from closer to Cleveland. But down in Columbus, two elderly men, one in his late 70s and the other in his 80s, squared off in the hallway of their assisted living home and shot at each other 6 times in a dispute over cafeteria food. No man was hit. Neither man was hit. So evidently, after initiating a fight over a slice of pie, both men went to their rooms, got firearms, and met in the hallway. The further part of the story was that they got into this hallway, which they described the hallway as a narrow hallway. Two old men were less than 6 feet from each other. Both, by the way, had canes, and they both shot at each other 6 times with a pistol, and none of them hit. None of them hit each other. And there's bullet sprays all over the place, and no one else died either, which was a good part of that story.
That's just visualizing that is comical. I mean, it's hard enough to
I don't even know
hold
what
a hand.
stated that.
No, it's just hard enough to hold a handgun steadily and shoot and hit a target. But oh man, I love it.
All right. Well, at any rate, Mike, it was good. Mike, it was good to see you as always. Have a good morning, and I will talk to you later on.
Adios.
Yeah, adios. All right. Have a good day.